Hello everyone, and welcome back to another WARNO tier list, this time for the 1.0 patch and the current state of WARNO after we have had now a couple of tournaments, having a look on what is the best division in the game, who is maybe suffering a bit, and what's the general balance of things. So let's start off with 4th Motschützen. And yeah, forward deploy has gotten a bit weaker, but is still pretty strong, keeping this division pretty solid in the game. Makers still going strong. Their helicopters still can be nice. Their aircraft can still be nice. T-55s are decent. Just don't have the insane late game. So I would say A tier goes pretty well for them. They're not really struggling. They are in the lower end of A tier in my eyes, but they for sure do what needs to be done to get them into the game. The Fallschirmjäger Medis and Fallschirmjägers for sure still the main selling point for playing them. 7th, not doing terribly. I would say is a pretty classic B tier division. It's a bit too predictable what you do with the T-72s, and your early game is relatively weak at the moment, so it's not the most amazing division in the game. You will struggle against forward deploy divisions a good bit, but at least you have the Spezialaufklärer, which are really strong forward deploy infantry themselves, though quite expensive for it. But yeah, that keeps them in B tier here, whilst KDA is now back in B tier as well, in my eyes. Yeah, 7th. You obviously T-72s are solid tanks. Yeah, just you can't really fight on max range. You can't really win the late game against heavy tank divisions. And the BMP-1 nerf did hit 7th as well before, which is why in my eyes it's a bit on the lower end of B tier, but still fine in B tier. KDA, B tier as well. Really strong artillery, and the KDA now being 35 points again gives them the human waves. The T-62s actually work out quite decently as well with the Bastion ATGM. So yeah, you can make the work. No forward deploy, no heavy tanks, obviously both issues, but you have the numbers to really go around, and you have enough anti-tank options to keep tanks at least in check. Though, and your airplanes are really good as well, especially thanks to you having a really fantastic seed plane as well with the Su-24. But yeah, you still will struggle in the early game against forward deploy. You will still struggle against heavier tanks, so there are still scenarios where you won't have it easy, but you can win, especially on the right maps, quite nicely. And the human wave tactics with 35-point KDA are just really back in business, making me a happy man. That's where I want KDA to be. Don't want to have them OP, because that means we are in a zombie meta again. Don't want to have them being useless, because that means we are in the tank meta again. Yeah, they're currently doing quite fine. Berlin Command, Berliner Gruppierung, I tried to play them quite a lot over the last couple of weeks, as they obviously got buffed, and they were D tier before. They made it up to C tier in my eyes, but they're still not great. The infantry is really fun. You can bring out a lot of units with them as well. They have KDA, they have all the special Motschützen variants, but your air is still not that great, and your tank obviously is the worst in the game. Out of all the tank tabs that are not airborne, and even with the airborne ones, they mostly have better tank tabs. So yeah, Berliner Gruppierung, they're struggling a bit. It's playable now again. It's still not a great division. So Berliner Gruppierung here in C tier. 4th does still most of what Berliner Gruppierung does a bit better, though the infantry now is fun. Like, yeah, as I said, it's playable. You just shouldn't expect it to be the easiest to go through with. So yeah, Berliner Gruppierung here in C tier. And then we come to 27th, which is the most played of the Soviet divisions at the moment. And I think that's rightfully so. I feel like they are quite the S tier in the division. The Nonna at the moment, really good. TDBV still solid. They have a lot of good infantry as well. Medis, BMP3s, and co. really can be used nicely. So that whole bunch is really working out nicely for 27th. They don't have the forward deployment anymore. The Spätzwetter lost the special forward deployment. They are only on recon deployment now, so it's not super strong in that regard. But you still have an M24 and stuff to deal with the early game, and that makes 27 still really nice to play around. And I think it's an S tier division at the moment. It's so well rounded, maybe the most well rounded division in the game at the moment. Though a bit harder to play than some others because it's still somewhat expensive. But it's for sure a great division to play. And yeah, S tier here in my eyes. And then 35th, which is an airborne division in B tier at the moment in my eyes. Its issue is that it has not the greatest fighters to protect all its other airborne assets, because it has great helicopters, which are now even better with the helicopter veterancy again, so you can actually use them, and all of those really can do a decent job, including their recon hind and so on. So if you could protect them easily with your AA and your helicopter, your aircraft, that would be nice. But the aircraft you have, the MiG-29s, don't quite do that job, and your AA is really not doing that job. So that's the issue of 35th. That's why I think it's B tier. Plus, its forward deploy infantry is solid, but it's only 7-man squads, and that's nowhere near some of the other forward deploy special forces infantry outside of the Spetsnaz. But yeah, like your normal Dejanikis, not doing amazingly. 39th, A tier division at the moment again. Really strong air opener we saw in the WARNO Super Tournament with the SU-25s and the EVOR Mi-8 helicopter that Mi-8 can just come around and find everything, all the targets, but also next to that, TADBVs and a lot of BMP2s is still a great combo. And yeah, with that air opener being able to threaten enemy forward deploy and in general openers, you have a good spot to get into with this deck as well. So yeah, even though it doesn't have as much forward deployment, which is still strong, it has enough other things going around that it is, in my eyes, an A tier division here, and really a good one at that. 39th, back in business. It isn't fancy anymore, but it's still just the jack of all trades that it always has been, and it does that job really well. 79th, B tier, still does its job decently. Yeah, I think somewhere around 35th in power level, though obviously quite different. It's just a bit slow. You're really vulnerable in the early game because you're not that cost efficient, and that keeps you busy. You don't have much forward deployment out of some outside of some Spetsnaz GRU, but you can't protect them that easily. So the 79th B tier division here, as you have the TADBV IZDs, fantastic tanks, you have good rocket artillery, and if you can get that all online together with still a good amount of infantry with BMP2s, but it's only Motor Strelkys, which are not amazing infantry on their own. So yeah, you need to play BMP2s, but that combo still works out nicely. So it is a B tier division. You can play it on all maps, but it will have its tough times against forward deployment, against everything that puts pressure on you. You need to keep your combined arms together, and that's not always easy. And that brings us to 119th, which I would put in a similar category. It's stronger in the early game, but has a tougher mid game than 79th, whilst having a similarly strong late game, based around the TADs, ADUDs. You have fantastic planes coming around, keeping you safe, but not that many strong attack planes, not that much artillery. You have the Spetsnaz and the Mi-25 24K as a good opener. Like, your opener is quite strong, but the follow-up is not quite there, so it's not a forward deploy division that just then keeps constantly on the pressure. It's more grabbing some ground and then strategically playing around that, and it's not that easy for sure. it can be solid though. Like we have seen T1 players playing it quite decently, so I think a B tier at the moment works out quite nicely for 119 Fear. Not amazing, but surprisingly playable. Even though it looks like the T80 UDs keep you busy nonstop. Then we have 6. 6 is another B tier division here. You have great artillery with the Hyacinth, which without all can do really well. The infantry is a weaker version of 119th though for the most part. You have some Mudschützen which can be nice, but outside of that it's just more the Strelkies. And then no direct forward deployment, just some special forces in form of the Luftsturmjäger. So your early game is not quite as strong, but the Luftsturmjägers are at least some special forces that you get, so they give you some firepower there. And then T-64s are good tanks, but not quite on the top end of the spectrum. They just can do decently for you, but they won't win the game outright for you. The air tab has the amazing cluster bombers. You have Books, so it's versatile. It's not a OP division in any tab though, so you really just have to play standard with this one, and it does that quite well. Like, in general, it's quite interesting how basic the Soviets are at the moment, but they play quite well, and there are some nice nuances between all, with 79 maybe the one that could use a bit more, but outside of that, Soviets in general feel relatively balanced. Like, even though 27th is up here, it's on the lower end of S tier, though it's still an S tier division. Like, it doesn't feel like it's super far away from the rest, though it's for sure a top dog division at the moment, and that in general here feels quite well for the Pact in general. Pact really feels solid right now. Now let's go to the British, where we start with the 1st UK, and I thought they would be stronger than they are, but 1st UK is just another B tier division here in my eyes at the moment. It's a good B tier division. The oblique is really annoying. The challengers are decent, but not great, though a bit more competitive. The chieftains are quite good, but also not completely busted. And the forward deploy is nice, but it doesn't quite allow you to push as much as I expected it to when I first saw the oblique and so on coming around. So yeah, it's still a lot of air as well, which is quite strong. So I think it's an absolutely serviceable division, but the tournament record of it wasn't great, though it had a couple of really tough matchups there as well, in my eyes. But yeah, it got picked for a reason, because it's a solid division, but it didn't have the run-through record in the tournaments, and it doesn't really have it on the ladder either. It feels beatable, which is nice, even though the Milan 2 Warriors can be really scary. Like, you have to be careful there, but it's a beatable division. Its brethren, though, still, I would put it up in S tier here. The 2nd UK still feels really, really strong. SAS, the rocket stuff, all the planes that come around, that division just feels still quite hard to beat early on. And we have seen it with a lot of success in the tournament as well. Pro Commute played it there, and the Lynx rockets just constantly annoying. The challengers give you decent enough staying power. Like, it feels still like an airborne division that has heavy tanks to a big extent, and then also having IFVs, warriors, and challengers there, plus some cheap infantry to spam around. Like, 2nd UK is still damn strong. The only thing that it doesn't get is a top-end fighter, but the Phantoms by now are not terrible anymore either, since the F4 got faster, so it's a solid division there as well. And then we have 11th ACR, which is another S tier division, actually. The Americans here coming around with a lot of speed, and it might actually be the top division in the bunch at the moment, because it profits from a lot of things. F-16s got the speed buff. It got the shotgun F-16 nonetheless, and they didn't get a price nerf for it. So F-16s currently are just highly overperforming. Same goes for the F-4s. And yeah, this division is based around F-16s. It has F-16C, it has F-16 fighters, 2 versions. It has F-16 LGBs, so that's all really strong. Then its recon tab got buffed a bit with the ACAV coming around and getting cheaper. The BGS actually got better at being recon. They aren't the insane fighting squad anymore, but they are better at recon, and you don't need them as fighting squad anymore because engineered dragons at the moment are completely busted. Once engineered dragons get fixed, I think the division will get a bit lower, but still be S tier. So with the hotfix, I think it will at least reduce their oppressiveness a bit on the ladder. But then the thing to fix it really is a price change to F-16s. Like, they all need to go up 5-10 points, some even 15, to really start to be in a price category where they belong with their current performance. So yeah, that's the thing with 11th ACR. It's just such a great division to run over people at the moment because it's has so much air, and at the same time M1A wants a lot of cheap infantry that is actually quite solid, which it usually was its weakness, right? Like, infantry wasn't the strong point of the division, but with the engineered dragons at the moment, it's a strong point of this division, so that really makes 11th ACR a top tier division at the moment. The Dragon one currently, for all who don't know it yet, doing double the stress that it really should do, or maybe even more, with each hit, and immediately stunning everything it hits, so being a fantastic top-end ATGM, and even on miss does sometimes damage at the moment, like all the other ATGMs, but on a low-end one like that is really nice as well. So yeah, hotfix hopefully changes that soon. 24th, coming around here, is an A-tier division as well, profiting from the Dragon 1 thing, being pretty cost efficient all around. That's why I would put it on to A tier here, though on the lower end, I think once the dragons get fixed, it might fall into B tier, but it has the Strike Eagles, which can be still pretty oppressive as well. Though at least the F4 numbers got a bit reduced, which was a good change there. That was just the even more obnoxious air spam than what 11th ACR has at the moment, because at least 11th ACR doesn't have that many planes. Once you start killing them, they are gone. With 24th, that just wasn't the case. So those changes are nice. And yeah, the National Guard isn't that amazing outside of the Dragon one at the moment. So, and the Bradleys are okay, but they are not the best IFVs at the moment, and it still has only mid-tier Abrams, and they are all relatively expensive nowadays, so it's a good division. I still wouldn't rank it complete top end, and as I said, I think it might fall down to B tier as soon as the Dragon 1 gets fixed. Yeah, third US on a similar path at the moment. Dragon 1 keeping it up in A tier. It has all the tools still. It's not amazingly cost efficient though. But it has a good amount of M1s. It has the it has the Apaches, it has the Great Air Tab, so third US here, still a division that you will have to fear a bit, and you will have to worry about letting it build up, but you can beat it early on. You can punch holes into it, so it's not unbeatable, and it's for sure a division that you can beat once the Dragon ones go down, as then its infantry just is going to be back to be its big weakness. Its numbers still not great, so third US, if you can stop it from getting up there in cost efficiency, it's good, quite nice. But at the moment, with the more defensive meta and so on, third actually often has the time to build up, and then it's still maybe the best deck in the late game out there. So third US, quite good division. Then 82nd Airborne. has fallen off a bit, but still a scary division as well. Fantastic air tap as well. Good amount of F-16s there too. The Love got nerfed, but it's still a good tool if you use it correctly. It's few of them and they are more expensive, so you can deal with them. They are not completely busted anymore, but they are still strong. And yeah, the amount of good infantry in this deck is really, really scary for most opponents as well. A lot of dragons flying around there, dragon 2s mostly, but still they will kill a lot of stuff. So airborne dragon, the 82nd Airborne, a good division still, but not the top tier division that it was in the previous patch. So yeah, more fun to play again as well against as well now, as it doesn't feel busted anymore. Though obviously, airborne openers still can be frustrating from time to time. Then we have 8th US, which is another S tier division. It's just so cost efficient all around. Dragon 1s in it are also quite numerous, so they are good as well. And even without the Dragon 1s, we had Dragon 1s banned in last weekend's tournament. It was still the most played and division, and it won a lot of its matchups as well, because it has cost efficient helicopters with the Cobras. It has cost efficient aircraft. It has cost efficient tanks around with M1s, but also the high end with the M1A1s. Mech rifles are really, really good as well, as you have so many hit points and a lot of MGs on them. So the 8th is just an absolute beast when it comes to efficiency and being a great all-rounder. And somewhat close to what 27th does for the Soviets, basically. Just a bit more cost efficient. That's why I would put it slightly above it. Maybe, yeah, also buffs second UK. Depends on the matchup there. But yeah, a good deck as well. Then 11th Para, a division that is based around its insanely strong infantry at the moment. But that infantry is just so good that it still carries. The air tab got nerfed, but it's still not bad. You still have ARCs that can be quite good, and that infantry tab rushing you forward and coming around everywhere can still be a major, major nuisance here. So 11th parachutist, a division that isn't quite as strong, but still really strong compared to the last patch. Yeah, the helicopters can be nice. It's not the most amazing helicopter thing though, as you don't get many rockets, so it's not like the other helicopters that really profited from that rocket buff. But 11th, for sure, the Marines saved it. Like, if it wouldn't have gotten the Marines, it would have fallen further down. And it's still one of the most hated divisions out there, because it's still a pain to play against. But it is beatable in my eyes now. So yeah, 11th going around here at the moment. And then we have 5th Blindé, which is in this branch of divisions that might most likely with a hotfix will go down to B tier, but are currently A tier. Because it profits really from the even misses sometimes doing damage at the moment on AP shells, because that allows you to move around with your AMX 30s and letting them shooting on the move, which you otherwise shouldn't ever do. But those super fast tanks going around shooting on the move without the stabilizer and still being able to do some damage is quite scary. And yeah, with the fix, it should go down to B tier. It will still be super mobile, and if the enemy macros it correctly, that move and shoot will still be strong. The infantry in it is one of the best in any tank division, and it's a really strong deck in general, with the tanks as well, though the tanks fall off in the late game. So if the enemy gets a decent amount of tanks onto the battlefield as well, the MX-30s start to fall off heavily. Like against one M1A1, you do well. Against two M1A1s, you can do okay. Against three M1A1s, you start to really die and not be able to counter it that well with this division. So that's why 5th Blindé Strong opener, not the most amazing opener. MX-10s are annoying, but you don't have any insanely strong forward deploy infantry or so. But there's still enough good infantry going around, and yeah, the mid game is where this division can really dominate, but then in the late game it once more falls off. The Auf 1 buff, though, helped out quite nicely as well. The autoloaders being cheaper and autoloader in general being better really helped this division in that regard too. Second Panzer Grenadier, another division here. I would put that in front of these guys, as it's a really good deck. Leo 2A3s, potentially the most efficient tank at the moment out there, with the nerf to M1A1s and the T80s. So Leo 2A3 really back in action there, thanks to the speed buff, thanks to the slight buff in accuracy again, together with that the the Leo 2A3 a really good tank. It has still forward deploy with Vulture which makes the early game easier. It has a solid air tap as well, including the F-16, the Belgian one, which got nerfed a bit. Yes, it doesn't have the best missiles anymore, only doing 4 damage now, but it still is great at hunting helicopters, and it still is a fast F-16, so that's a good thing nonetheless. And yeah, you have decent enough AA, you have good mix of infantry as well, with martyrs and so on, and the Eagers and whatever you need. So second Panzer Grenadier, Leo 1s doing a decent job as well, Jaguars being fantastic ATGM vehicles. So all of that really helping out the second Panzer Grenadier to be another great jack of all trades at the moment, and playing quite nicely in most events where we see them as well. Fifth Panzer being another B-tier division. We have seen it with some good success here. I think first UK and second Fifth Panzer playing relatively similar, with first having a bit better early game and Fifth having a bit better late game, with a great potential of just blobbing out there with both a lot of Malers, Leos, and then also potentially some Fuchs Milans if you want to play around that, which can be quite strong as well. Good artillery tap, that's also true for second Panzer Grenadier. Like the artillery taps on those two German divisions, quite nice. But it is still really focused on Panzer Grenadiers, which are not great infantry, and it doesn't have a great forward deploy. It's AA tap, also having to rely on Rolands, not the greatest. The F4 can be quite good fighters, but if the enemy knows how to control against them, they can be beaten in the long run as well. We have seen that in tournament games as well. So in general, a B-tier division here. And yeah, as you can see, most divisions here currently quite playable, though there's still some differences here in power level for sure. TKS, another division that goes around here at the moment, with a really strong forward deploy, AMX-10s coming around, a fantastic air spam. The M48's not great, but they are at least giving you some sort of tank. And yeah, the Green Berets really got better in comparison to other forward deploy infantries, because the others got nerfed and Green Berets didn't in that last patch, so they actually do quite nicely there. You have a lot of infantry to push up with, you have decent artillery as well. You can really bring a lot of pain to the enemy with a lot of units moving around. Airmobile with the Apilas being good anti-tank, which other German divisions lack. Another issue with 5th Panzer, that you don't have any infantry with better in Carl Gustav. Territorial Commando Süd not having that issue. Green Berets with 84s, and the Apilas on the Airmobile really helping out that division quite nicely and keeping it up here. It falls off further on in the game, but even then, with M48s, a lot of air and decent artillery, it still can do the job there. And yeah, especially that air, if the enemy doesn't get that under control, can run rampant with the game. We have seen that in tournament games as well. And the AMX-10 RC in combo with forward deploy is making the opener even stronger than what you can get in 5th Plin Day. And a nice mix of 2 worlds there, armored for deploy, like armored rushes with good vehicles and for deploy infantry. Strong combo. Berlin Command, last division here, a good mix. The Nighthawk not doing so amazingly lately. Its AA not being great and it not having the fort deploy anymore made it, or like never having fort deploy and fort deploy being so important at the moment, makes it another B tier division here. The tanks in it are decent. The infantry is still solid, but it's not a division that just outright wins the early game, and it has to play that mid game, and that it's not the top end division. So yes, it's serviceable. It has a lot of options. You can build that deck quite differently as well. Plus the new Berlin infantry of the British that also has a lore 80 is a fantastic tool to deal with enemy as well. So in general, Berlin Command here, another B tier division, rounding out the tier list nicely here. With only one C tier division, you could consider maybe the back end here going somewhat closely as well, but no divisions, completely unplayable, which is great. And yeah, maybe still a couple too many S tier divisions, but hopefully hotfixes changing that at least a bit for the 2 American ones. As soon as the Dragon ones get nerfed, those should come down at least a bit, though I would still expect these 2 to be S tier, whilst we might even get a bigger B tier here when the nerfs come in and the hotfixes come in. So yeah, let me know down below what you think of this list, which division you see as the best and the worst at the moment. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye bye, and have a great day.